Hello, hello. There you go. That's sort of better, isn't it? Needs to be a bit further out, I think. It's not. I'll talk to it like this. I'll be all right then. Look a bit weird. Look a bit like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, but you know what I mean? Yeah. That's no good. Let's try it. Needs to be somewhere I can actually catch my voice.
So we're about to start. So if anyone can hear me in the corridor, please take your seats.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello. That worked, didn't it? Hello, hello. You say goodbye, I say hello. I'm just doing a bit of karaoke now. You know, you never know when it might come in handy. Exactly, yeah. Usually give a man a microphone and a few pints of lager or something. Hello, 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 hello.
Right, you're all awake now, aren't you? So no post-lunch napping. Okay, so we're straight into the next session, and Johnny's on again. Take it away, please.
All right. Hello, everybody. I can't get this mic to work properly, so I'll just project.
You can hold this one.
Okay. Hello, hello, hello.
You probably need to switch it on, though.
Switching it on usually helps. Yeah. Hello. All right. I'll use this. I'll use this. I feel a bit of a clown using this mic, but I suppose we really need it for catching the voice thing, don't we? Yeah. So I'll take that off. Hope somebody's going to edit this before it's sent out. Me doing my karaoke impersonations isn't great.
I should say that if you want to do karaoke, you could just wait for the drinking session. I don't know if everybody's noticed, but at the end of the day, there will be some drinks of the alcoholic variety where we've been having lunch. So if you want to wind down gently into the weekend. I should have pointed that out earlier. Are you all right with your mic now?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you very much. Yeah, I could do. Requests, please. Okay. Right, so I'm going to feel a bit embarrassed now because obviously we've got some real tool experts in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover the sort of basics, to cover the 5 or 6 areas where tool support is useful or where it's available. And obviously, some of the guys who've put software packages together may well cover more than one of the areas that I'm going to talk about. But at least it gives you an idea of the sorts of things that we can do, and maybe the sorts of things that we should do. Now let's see whether I can get this to work. Yeah, that works great. There is a pointer, isn't there? But I was told that thing would work as well. Yeah, whenever I get hold of technology, I should be the idiot tester, right? I've got half of it right. And I've tried all the buttons. This was working a moment ago. Oh, there we go. Something. Yeah, just don't move. So obviously, okay. I'm just going to whiz through. As I say, it's about 4 or 5 different bits and bobs that we're going to go through. So the first we're going to talk about is data profiling, data quality. I wasn't actually sure whether or not to split these into 2 different domains. I think I do quite often I think in the book I do, and quite often when I'm talking about it. They are subtly different. Data profiling is really about pointing it at data sources which you either don't know much about or you think you know something about. And they find things like fill rates for different columns, whether columns are likely to be unique, have unique values in them, whether those unique values are reproduced in other columns, so you can see secondary, primary keys and secondary keys. And they do a whole range of things like that. Looking for pattern recognition, so you can find all the records that seem to have telephone numbers, email addresses, or national insurance numbers in them. So that's your profiling, and profiling, of course, at its best, will work over multiple data sets so that you can find linkages. If you've got a situation, as we often have, where you've got 32 different databases, and you want to dedupe it based on name, then some of the better tools will actually find all the names that wherever they are in each of the data sets. So they're very powerful tools. But as I say, if you like, what they do is they find the rules in the data sets, whereas data quality applications take the business rules and apply them to the data sets. So it's the other way around. And what you generally find is that most of the tool sets are designed one way or the other, and then repurposed. So you'll get tools that most of them come from the data quality side of things, to be fair. And bearing in mind that as an industry, we've been deduping names and addresses since we did mail shots in the 60s. They've got quite a long heritage. So the data qualities tends to be, and everyone always demonstrates how to dedupe names and addresses, which, given we've had 50 years at doing it, should be quite good at by now. So you tend to find that they come from one direction or the other. So the examples that I've got here are Informatica. Informatica comes in everything, and I can't remember which particular module it is in Informatica, but obviously Informatica started out as a non-data warehouse data warehouse tool. But what they actually found was that it was their thing that was the thing that sold. But Informatica been around a long time, and obviously they do max out and always come out in the top quartile of people when they're looking at data quality. As well, another well-known data quality tool. These are expensive. These are expensive tools, and you've got to ask if the NHS as a whole was buying them, it'd probably be worth doing. But whether you could afford them for a single project, unless you've got quite a deep pockets, would be difficult. But they're worth looking at if you've got a strategic need. A strategic need for a data quality tool going forward, then it's worthwhile looking at them as part of a purchase. The data profiling tools, things like Data Explorer, Infosphere, of course, is quite well known. Again, they can. I was working on a project where we were trying to get data out. The key was a 1970s non-relational database, which had absolutely no documentation whatsoever. Getting the data out of reverse engineering that was extremely difficult. Hello. So yeah, it was extremely difficult. So without the use of a profiling tool, I'd have been back in the days of using, what was it, SED and grep and decomposing the tables and all the rest of it. So that really saved the price you paid for the tool, saved a 2 or 3 man years effort. So it was worth it. The other benefit, because you do have data quality tools built into a lot of products like SQL Server and all, and Azure, as it's now called, I think. So it's worthwhile using them. We were talking, weren't we, about how many times you need to do a trial run. Well, one of the things you can do, and I kind of recommend, is if you're doing fortnightly cycles, which is what we now do, and I'm now going to recommend in PDM. If you're doing fortnightly cycles, at the end of each cycle, it's often not tenable to do a proper data migration, because that might take 2 weeks in itself when it's not being done in a production mode. But of course, if you set yourself up with a data quality tool that tests all the business rules which then change in each cycle, you can actually predict. You can use that to do the equivalent, not the equivalent of doing an ETL, but certainly trapping all the data quality issues where the data that you're putting up doesn't match the rules that you've been given. So using a data quality tool like that is quite a useful way of just constantly redoing the ETL without actually having to go the full mile and load it into the target. So I think looking at data quality tools, if you've got something like that I mean, there's others. Talend produces one as well. So if you use a data quality tool that's available to you, and you think about putting it in like that as part of your routine checking of your ETL code, I think it's worth looking at. Of course, what you've got to do in that case, and it's something we'll cover on a later slide, is you've got to make sure that the set of rules that you've got in the data quality tool are the same as the set of rules that you've created the ETL to, which means you've got to get on top of your release management. But we'll look at release management in a later slide. Archiving, we've all been talking a lot about archiving. So yeah, exactly what everybody else has said really. Not all the data we need will be moved into the new systems. So like back records is the classic, you've got to keep them for 6 years, but you don't really need them online real time. And you'll find that in most business processes. I'm doing some work at Human Fertilization Embryology Authority, and they have this, they have this thing about OTR, open the register, where you can go and find out, who your real father was when you're 16. You can find out that was your father. But obviously that's got something like, I can't remember the KPIs. I think it's 20 days. So it's not something you're going to do. People are going to phone up and they're going to go, right, there it is. It's all done through a process. So data like that you wouldn't need to have online real time. So having it in a near real time environments where people can do that work is perfectly adequate. So the key to it all is working out up front which data you need to have online, which data you need to have near online, and which data you can have offline. If somebody is going to give a VAT inspection, you will get plenty of notice. You don't need to do it. You're not going to be expected to do it there and then. And again, as we said, I mean, some of your data has to be kept for an awful long time. I mean, our friend in insurance has just disappeared, but that's also true of insurance as well. So there's common approaches: keep an old version of the old system and create a data warehouse for the old data. And then there are some, I've just picked out a few different solutions here. Firehold is one that I have actually seen. The other one I've only heard about. And then of course you get specific ones if for instance you want to do, if you want to hold emails, or in this case Lotus Notes, or SAP have got their own archiving solution as well for SAP records. So probably that's enough for us, because I think everybody else has kind of killed archiving to death really, but you do need to think about it in advance and pick suitable tools, or at least it's another class of tools. Okay, data migration controllers. And we've kind of touched on this, I think, but a migration controller is that's the fat controller over there, as you probably recognize. So a migration controller, I say if you get a really sophisticated one, again, like the one that's in Informatica, you get gating, which is you can do all your background data. You can migrate it whilst the production databases are up, because you can reduce the flow of data through your things, which in case so it isn't contest, it doesn't produce an overload on the network and things like that, and then ramp it up when the business use is slower. You get better fault logging and alert management and routing of emails and all that sort of stuff when you get alerts. Better reporting built in. You got drag and drop interfaces to actually create your ETL. It's a very sophisticated package, but it comes again with a sophisticated package price. Synchronization is also a key thing. I think she's gone now, but the lady was talking about the doing a parallel run and keeping the old system and the new system going. Well, really, to do that properly, you need bidirectional synchronization. So if something changes on the old system, that filters through to the new system, and if something changes on the new system, filters through the other way. And to do that, you do need quite sophisticated software to do that. It's more common, as I say, for them to write most of this in SSIS is what everybody uses these days for everything, as far as I can tell. So it's more common to reproduce some of that, some of those features. Probably not all of them, and probably not as well, but it's certainly doable. Data migration, the cloud. The cloud has been really great for us data migration guys, because we always need something like 3 times the processing power that the production systems need, because we've got to take all the data that the production system has. That's one lot, and then we're probably going to want to massage it and put it somewhere as a transfer. That's a second lot, and then we need lots and lots of power as well. So we use and of course it's only for a peak. It's for a peak for a few months in the whole duration of the project, that we just need this stacks of power, stacks of disk space, or stacks of data storage. And trying to get that in the old days, when you had to, book a server build 3 months in advance, charge it to the right cost center code, the guys in the production thing would always think, oh, you're overestimating, and give you something a lot smaller that wouldn't work. So it's a nightmare. I mean, now you can dial up Amazon Web Services and get yourself a configuration on the back of a company credit card. So it makes things a lot easier, and it's good for us because we don't need it for long durations. Quite often it is just a few days to run a test, and then we can drop it again or reduce the size of it. So I absolutely love the cloud, although I realise that it's still for a lot of organisations, especially for a lot of organisations, it does scare the data wonks who oh yeah. So as I say, so the cloud's been a benefit to us in terms of actually doing our development work, but then the other side of it, it can take an awful long time, days and days, when something that you would have taken 5 or 6 hours if you were just being able to hit the underlying data structures, then will now take 4, 5, 6 days to load data in. So that means you've got to start thinking about your transitional business processes, because obviously things are going to be shut down for that length of time, or phasing your migration, or loading non-variant data, and then doing a delta load or anything that's changed. So you've got to sort of rethink the way you do things because of that speed. The sort of software, of course, these are the 2 leading leaders. I so respect Microsoft. They're never first, but they're always the best second, aren't they? Amazon Web Services really blazed the path, didn't they? Now everybody's buying Azure. It's just like Windows and the MacBooks, wasn't it? They came. The great are coming second. Anyway, that's just an aside. Yeah. So we like the cloud. If anyone wants to ask any questions, feel free. Which one of these is he giving me now? Okay, so I think I'm going to spend a bit longer talking about version control and release management. I think, especially with when you're working in agiles or semi-agile environments, you'll find that data structures and requirement and validation and all that sort of stuff can change week by week, and if you're not careful, then you get stuck in this glorious cycle of despair where you're loading stuff one week and then the next week it won't load, and then somebody's changed. I mean, you could change even small items. It can cause thousands of things to fall out. I mean, I've known people correct spelling mistakes in pick lists not tell anyone. And because it's all done for the best possible reason, you know, and then 10,000 invoices fall out. So you've got to be really tight about your management. So the way I think about this is that, you know, a release is a set of configurable items. So a configurable item can be a mapping template, computer program, a data dictionary, a test script for a testing, a training manual for training. Each of those is a configurable item, and each one of them will be dependent upon it will be dependent upon the particular release against which it was targeted. And what you need to do, this is all in the next book, so you're getting a heads up here. So what you need to do is you need to be able to say, this is the release, this is release 37.2 or whatever it is. It has these configurable items in it. And for me, the configurable items are the data requirements definition, which could be entity by entity, or it could be a data dictionary. I think I prefer it entity by entity really. But those are the configurable items, those and the DQRs, which DQRs you're fixing. You remember DQRs are all our fault logs. So which DQRs you're fixing in which release, and then what the current data definitions are in each release. You put those all together, all those configurable items together, and that forms a release. Then when you've done that, then you then know across the whole of the program which releases go with which other configurable items. So if you've got some tests that are based upon, you know, 13.3, and they don't want to move off that because they want to go through the whole test pack, you can keep restoring 13.3. And it's similarly for training as well, because training tends to want to stay with the same, you know, set of training, because they don't want to keep rewriting the training manuals. So it's important. So it's important to be able to keep your items, keep your configurable items under change control, under version control, and then have a release that's a coherent set of those configurable items. There is some software that's available for it. So there's things like Git and Apache and AWS Code Commit, but they tend to be focused more on things like, well, code really, coding scripts, and they have ways of releasing code into production and so on. And I guess you can repurpose them to use to do certain Word documents and things like that. But what I find with these is they don't cover the whole piece. They don't cover everything that's got to be, you've got to maintain in the same release. But what I've started to do is to start using some of these collaboration tools. I can only speak to the ones that I've used, and obviously that's Confluence and Jira are the two that I've used. I think I use Redbrick as well, but it's Confluence and but just a question actually, is Confluence and Jira, are they two different products, or are they? But are they the same? Are they made by the same? I never understood whether they're actually like, because they always turn up together, like, you know, like Sooty and Sweep. But you know, I was never quite clear in my own head whether they were what the relationship was to each other. Yeah, but by using tools like that, you can keep track of the version numbers. Certainly, it's great for tracking your DQRs and knowing, because you can say what sprint, or what call it a sprint, what sprint each DQR is going to be delivered in, and recover from that the actual, you know, post facto what was actually in that release, which of course is very useful if somebody's. We always have this problem in data migration that we've got what the IBM used to call a pseudo converse. We can't guarantee if somebody's a data issue, we may have to go back to the business. And obviously, if we're going to have to do a site survey of 32 gas pressure stations across the UK, you're not going to get that in 2 weeks. So what we need to do is we need to be able to say, well, we'll deliver it in this release. You'll have it in this release here, so we can plan it into other people's release. So we can't do the sort of traditional Kanban thing, which is just stick it in the backlog and see when it pops out. So we need to be a bit more planning about it. So I think, and as I say, using this release, using these collaboration tools gives us a lot of additional abilities to actually manage that configuration. Have I made any sense here? People are nodding. Nobody's saying no. Yeah, it shows you where I think. All right, so now I know we're going to get on to collaboration tools. I mean, these are definitely, let's say, the others might challenge people's price thresholds, but I think everybody should be using collaboration tools. I mean, we've got some down here, Jira, Microsoft. I'm using Microsoft Teams on it's awful. It's incredibly bad. It is. I mean, it doesn't even use Windows properly. It's a Microsoft tools. It's jaw-droppingly poor. But you can actually use it. You can. I don't care. But you've got these others. You've got these others. As I say, this is the one that you see mostly kicking around the place. And it too has its. No, I shouldn't say that. It's actually wonderful. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. But yeah, so these, yeah, but with that you can. It's really important for fault management, but also for release management. And when you're doing cutovers, the one thing that Microsoft Teams actually does have embedded in it, because it's really a way of lumping together lots of different Microsoft products. But one of the things that's nice when you're doing your cutover is to have something like a chat room type thing, so that as the different groups of people are doing their different things, a lot of the time people are working from home and all the rest are working remotely. You know, instead of having to phone them up and say, have you finished, or them having to create an email, so yeah, I've finished step 23, they can just drop it into the chat room and then everybody can see it. And what Microsoft Teams does, of course, it uses Outlook, so it just generates an email to everyone. So so using those sorts of features within these collaboration tools really makes things a lot easier, and it allows you to keep a lot tighter grip on, as I say, the configuration management than using the dreaded spreadsheets and all the rest of it. So yeah, big fan of collaboration tools, it's like anything else. When you get to use them, you think, how the heck did I ever do this before? It's like mobile phones or email. It's difficult to imagine how you did it before you had these things. Cloud's the same.